Sound check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do we have sound to the internet? 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Let's do this one. Test 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2. Well, good morning. Again, there's that question, what are you doing here on such a beautiful sunny day? Why are you not hiking somewhere or working in the garden? Or is your inner life of such importance that you're preempting other things? Sanity has its price, I guess. So this is, in a certain way, a solo journey, but it's a journey that we must have company for. And to honor that, I invite you to turn to a neighbor, either sit quietly with yourself or turn to a neighbor and tell them something that's important to you today, something that's really alive for you today. And your name, I guess, would be good too. Just a moment of greeting. That was fun to hear. Well, thank you for being here. Hi to those of you that are joining us on the net, and those of you way up in the choir loft. The air gets thin up there, doesn't it? Warm, also, warmer. Today in the Dharma talk, I'm going to return to last week's talk on the 5 aggregates on perception and mental proliferation or mental complexity. And I walked in, I could smell these lilacs. And this is my second sniff of lilacs this spring. And the first sniff is the significator for me of spring. And it also always brings with it, in terms of the complexity of mind, that this scent is not just this, it's the lilacs by the back door where I grew up, that my mother grew. And so this scent is also my mother, delighting in the lilacs and the fact that it's spring. And it was spring there in Montreal after a long, cold winter. And that connects, then how the memories go, that connects with memories of her putting the laundry out to dry in the winter. We didn't have a dryer when I was a kid. And so she put the sheets out on the line and they froze stiff. And then the water sublimed directly from ice to vapor rather than through water. And they smelled great. That's all in one sniff of a lilac. It's no wonder life is so complicated, because one stimulus turns into Hi, Mom. So I want to start with a reading today that pertains to this. I don't know the origin of this. It's called The Cracked Water Pot. I have a friend for whom this story had such meaning that she went and had tattoos done of the cracked water pot. A water bearer in India had 2 large pots. Each hung on one end of a pole, which he carried across his neck. One of the pots had a crack in it, and while the other pot was perfect and always delivered a full portion of water at the end of the long walk from the stream to the master's house, the cracked pot arrived only half full. For a full 2 years this went on daily, with the bearer delivering only 1.5 pots of water to his master's house. Of course, the perfect pot was proud of its accomplishments, perfect to the end for which it was made. But the poor cracked pot was ashamed of its own imperfection and miserable that it was able to accomplish only half of what it was meant to do. After 2 years of what it perceived to be a bitter failure, it spoke to the water bearer one day by the stream. "I am so ashamed of myself, and I want to apologize to you." "Why?" asked the bearer. "What are you ashamed of?" "I have been able for these past 2 years to deliver only half my load because this crack in my side causes water to leak out all the way back to your master's house. Because of my flaws, you have had to do all this work and you do not get full value from your efforts," the pot said. The water bearer felt sorry for the old cracked pot, and in his compassion he said, "As we return to the master's house, I want you to notice the beautiful flowers along the path." Indeed, as they went up the hill, the old cracked pot took notice of the sun warming the beautiful wildflowers on the side of the path, and this cheered it some. But at the end of the trail, it still felt bad because it had leaked out half its load, and so again it apologized to the bearer for its failure. The bearer said to the pot, "Did you notice that there were flowers only on your side of the path, but not on the other pot's side? That's because I have always known about your flaw, and I made good use of it. I planted flower seeds on your side of the path, and every day while we walk back from the stream, you have watered them. For 2 years I have been able to pick these beautiful flowers to decorate my master's table. Without you being exactly the way you are, he would not have had this beauty to grace his house." So typically, historically, one begins practice with reminding oneself of the refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The refuge in being awake, And with this awakeness of experiencing what actually is, and doing it in the company of our good friends, which is all of life. To take refuge in what is to take refuge in the fact that we are complicated, we are flawed, we are a work in progress. I collect spiritual so-called cartoons, and one of my favorites is that the classic God figure with the long hair and is taking the world out of the oven, and the caption is, "Dang, it's only half-baked." And that's us, right? Half-baked. So fortunately we have technologies of consciousness and many other things which can help us wake up and grow up and bake ourselves. So among these technologies, one of the most potent is that of sitting and stopping. To sit and stop, to notice the wandering mind, and then to wake up, to notice that it's possible to come home and be with the breath. It's possible to notice, I'm sitting here. It can seem like not such a big deal to be present with the breath, but if we observe all the suffering that this mind creates through its fantasies and its memories and its emotional preoccupations, the fact is that human suffering arises because we're not in the present moment. So what can seem like a kindergarten level practice, come home, be with your breath, is actually the doorway to freedom. Because it provokes this awakeness. It potentiates awakeness. So please notice there's a beginning to each breath. There's a rising to fullness. There's a change of direction, and then there's a decline of the chest and abdomen. And then it ends. But awareness doesn't end, does it? It may take something else as its object, perhaps the hands or the feet. there is one key instruction without which newcomers to practice never stay long. And that has to do with what's the short-term purpose, or what am I trying to do? And if our belief is that what I'm trying to do is to stop the mind from wandering or thinking or going off into trance or having emotions, then we will remarkably fail. And then a story will start about how I can't do it, or this is the wrong meditation, or something like that. A much wiser and more skillful intention has to do with, I intend to wake up and see what's happening. If the mind is wandering, I want to know that. If the mind is filled with self-hatred or anxiety or fear or loneliness or joy or bliss or awakeness, I want to know that. In fact, I want to come to such a place that I can accept however the mind is and stop fighting it. Trying to be the perfect pot with no wandering mind is pretty grim, pretty hopeless. But accepting this moment as it is on its own terms allows this awakeness, this knowing, which is the Buddha, is that which is awake. So let each breath invite you to be present, and each wandering mind to invite you to wake up, to notice that, and to come back, be here. for a period of a few years, we have on loan to us water that passes through and various material elements that form the body. And then this body is miraculously alive and it can sense things, so therefore there's pleasant and unpleasant experiences and neutral.